running backs bring some things to the table. What do you like about Akeel Lynch? What are some things that he brings to the table that make him either unique or that give him an advantage on the field?
Well, obviously I've said this before, he's kind of got, combination of traits. He's got Bill's speed and some of his elusiveness and quickness. He's got, almost Akeel's size, so he's able to run with power and those things as well. He's still a young back and learning every single day from an experience standpoint and things like that. But he kind of brings a little bit of both of those guys together. And right now, his opportunity with those two seniors and learning from them, not only in what they do on game day, but just kind of how they conduct and how they carry themselves day in and day out in meetings and practice like that. It's extremely valuable. And I think that the other thing that's helpful is that's a position where we have great competition. So, if guys don't bring their A game, they're going to lose their jobs. And that's what you really want to create at every single position, because that's human nature. You're going to work harder if you got a guy behind you that's capable of taking your job. And we don't have that at every single position. That's where we need to get.
Okay, Ryan, at this point we'll take questions here in the media room. Ask you please raise your hand. We'll bring a microphone to you.
Hey, James.
How you doing?
Tremendous. How are you?
Tremendous. It's the new one. I like that.
Hey, you were able to play some of your freshman DBs with the ones last week when it was still kind of a tight game. How do you go about deciding when those guys are going to be in there, and how important is it for those young kids to play with guys who have been out there?
Yep, very much so. Very, very important for the growth of our program and the confidence for those kids and the confidence for the coaches. Typically, you're looking at this throughout the week. You may say we're planning on playing a guy and then he doesn't have a great week of practice and you don't feel real confident putting him in there, especially a young player. But typically you kind of have an idea of what you're thinking throughout the week, and then Friday or Saturday morning, depending on when our staff meeting is, based on the time of the game, we'll go through offense, defense, we'll kind of go through all of our notes, and then we kind of talk about the depth chart and how we're planning on playing guys. So, it may be Jordan Lucas and Grant Haley. We're going to go 3-1, so 3 series to 1 series, or it may be 2-1 with Trevor and Christian, or whatever it may be. Or we may say, okay, this is this kid's first time really playing on offense or defense, so we want to get him 1 series in the first half and see how he does, and then that may mean 1 series in the second half or 2 series, and kind of grow from there. So, what you hope is a guy goes in there in limited reps and has some success and builds some confidence in the coaches and in himself, and it grows from there. But I think it's very, very important. When you can get a guy out of there for 1 or 2 series in each half as a starter, that's going to help us in the fourth quarter, and that's going to help us, later in the season, keeping these guys as fresh as we possibly can.
James, to follow up on the question about Christian being able to pick up yards for you guys with his feet, he's lowered his shoulder a few times this year to finish some of those runs at the end of plays. Do you buy into, do you like that, the competitiveness of that play for him to end a play like that, or are you trying to coach that out of him, that he takes those slides and not takes those unnecessary hits?
I love it, and I hate it. I love it from a competitive standpoint. That's kind of who I want us to be. But that doesn't make a whole lot of sense for us right now, and that's not smart. So, he's got to be calculated. Now, if it's 3rd and 3, and he needs it to keep the drive alive or to win the game, or 4th down, you got to do what you got to do. But those other situations, get as much as you can, get down. Get as much as you can, get out of bounds.
Coach, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Stupendous.
Stupendous.
Any better at the field at being jail?
I'll tell you what, I love it. I love it.
For you and your staff, you guys played Northwestern before when you were at Vandy. Is that any type of an advantage compared to what, maybe Nebraska, where you haven't seen them before?
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt that having history with people, with teams, with coaching staff, with players and things like that, there comes a little bit of a comfort level there or an understanding. I don't know if one game really does that, but it's better than none. I don't think there's any doubt about that. I think playing at home when you're at a place like Penn State, really gives us an advantage. You have a true home field advantage, and we're expecting to have a big one on Saturday.
James, I'm doing great. I'm sure you are as well.
You are, and I was very curious. I've been watching you. You coordinated your phone and your shirt. Do you do that? Do you change
There was
your
no.
phone?
I just got a new phone, so it was the only case they had.
Awesome.
So.
I didn't know if you changed them
No.
out based on your outfit every
No,
day.
not that high maintenance.
I do.
Yeah, Ben might do it. But I have a couple questions. The first one's about Parker Cothran. We see a little bit more of him each week. What stood out about him? And the second one about Von Walker, kind of like a DJ Crook guy walked on here, and he's a big special teams guy for you
Yep.
as well. So what's impressed you about Von and Parker?
Yeah, Parker's doing some really nice things. You know, Parker is a very good athlete, and he's been really good in competitive situations, in the off-season, summer camp, and in the games. He really has. He's a big physical guy. He can move. It's very, very important to him. You know, the exciting and frustrating thing with Parker is we need to get him to practice at a higher level, because if we get him to practice at a higher level, then I think his game could really explode. What he's done in the games is he's gone in and been very productive. So, you know, his play count's gonna improve. If we can get him to practice at a higher level, then I think he has a chance to see his playing time significantly increase and develop into a starter for us. Von, I love Von. I do. I love everything about him. He's one of the guys that I signal out all the time to the team as a great example. You know, there's a bunch of those guys. Albert, you guys have heard me talk about Albert Hall a lot, and Cole Chipielli and guys like that. You know, Von's in that group. And one of the things you have to watch with Von is he plays with so much passion and emotion that we need to make sure that he's disciplined with that as well. But I love him. I wish we had 10 guys like him. And I think his role on special teams and on defense is going to continue to grow for us. We want that guy on the field for us.
Hey, James.
How you doing?
Awesome. You?
Great.
Good. Got a question for you about Bob Shoup. So I was talking to his old boss at Yale, Carmen Casa, and he had mentioned that when he was working there as a coach for him, that Bob could essentially, he had such a good attention to detail when he was like actually watching the games, during the games, that he could predict the plays before they happened sometimes. Have you noticed that talent out of Bob, and how has that helped in the years you've worked with him?
I think either last week in the press conference or the week before, I stated that you know, I've been with Bob where he's called out 75% of the plays before they've happened. So I think I covered that last week.
Hey James, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good. I have a question about Trevor Williams. We're going to get a chance to talk to him today. He kind of had an up and down season last year, but it seems like this season he's, at least from our perspective, stepped up a little bit more and really held onto that position, that corner. Could you just talk about like what's the first thing with Trevor that comes to mind, whether on or off the field?
Yeah, he's having a great year this year, and doing some nice things week in and week out. You know, he has all the tools that you're looking for in terms of the height, in terms of the speed, in terms of the athleticism, and the strength, and the intelligence. You know, you recruit him every single year. And, you know, like I mentioned before, the fact that he's now been able to make some plays and his confidence is soaring, that was the one thing that was missing is, you know, just, you know, having the experience of going out and playing well. You know, guys skyrocket with that, and that's kind of what's happening with him right now. I think the other thing that we're able to create some depth behind those guys is helpful in terms of getting guys to practice the way they have to practice at every position. And that's not even specific to him, that's just across the board. And then also being able to sub guys in and keep them fresh throughout the game. All those things are really, really important, but I've been real pleased with him.
Hey, James.
How are you?
Good. To piggyback off Mark's question a little bit, with determining who's going to play and when, does that ever get affected by the way the game is going itself? Like if you decide on Friday, I want to play this guy
Good question.
for 4 series,
Yeah.
how does it happen if the game changes in the third or fourth?
Yeah, good question. I don't want it to, but that happens, and I get frustrated when that happens, because although in the short term that seems like the right answer, it's not in the long term when it comes to the game and when it comes to the season. But there's no doubt, you know, you guys heard me say earlier in the year in the first couple games that I'd like us to play more guys. And then I'd come into the press conference the next week and say, I'd like us to play more guys. That's what was happening. You know, the games were tighter and coaches didn't feel comfortable taking their number 1 out to put a number 2 in. And again, that seems like the right idea or the right method to keep your best players on the field as long as possible, but there's so many things that can come from that aren't positive. So, I don't want it to. I want to have a plan before the game starts, and I want to stick to the plan as best that we possibly can. Now, is there things that happen outside of our control? Yeah. But for the most part, we spend a lot of time being thorough and being detailed and being planned and being calculated with the things that we do. I want to stick to the plan. If not, why are we coming in so early in the morning and staying so late?
Hey James, how's it going?
Good, how are you?
I'm good. I got a filling this morning, so if I start drilling on you, I apologize because my face is still numb. But
It's funny, you don't notice it. I've gone through the same thing. You're more self-conscious than actually. You look awesome. You look
I appreciate that. You look good too. But you've mentioned before, and Christian's mentioned before, that you guys are the second youngest team in college football. From a coaching perspective, how much does that change on a weekly basis, the sort of the ratio to what you want to work on as a team versus maybe working on things that guys still have to work on as a young team, maybe versus the fact, if they were a veteran squad?
Yeah, I don't know if it changes a whole lot, because where I think that's you make mistakes as well is you start to get a little bit, maybe you have a veteran team and you start saying, well, we don't have to do these things because we're veteran. We don't believe in that. To me, we're going to have our practice divided up no different than what teachers do when it comes to lesson plans. It's part, whole. And we try to do that. So you're always trying to develop fundamentals and technique with all your guys, and then you go into individual drills to group drills to team drills. So those are the building blocks that you're trying to take. What you really hope, if I'm answering your question correctly, what you really hope is by the time you get to the 5th, 6th, 7th game of the year, that those guys now that have been playing are not freshmen anymore. They're veterans. They've been around it long enough. And the guys that haven't been playing, they've still grown and evolved that if they need to, that they can jump in and play for you. So, I don't think you approach it a whole lot different with a young team compared to an experienced team, because you want to stick to your plan. If your plan makes sense. It's just like people that maybe after a loss, they go back and change their plan. Well, the outcome should not dictate what you're doing. Now, you're always trying to modify and tweak things and grow, but if your plan is right, you stick to your plan.